It's preparing. Right. So we are live. We'll give some folks an opportunity to join us here. And we will get started. Yeah, I do see a little bit of folks coming on. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us. As usual, my name is Fawn Walker Montgomery. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Take Action Advocacy Group, formerly known as Take Action Mon Valley, and we call that TAG for short. So as usual, I'm just going to go over a brief little intro of who TAG is, what we do. So TAG is a Black liberation organization that focuses on helping Black people and other marginalized groups and small communities. So we believe and know that from our own personal experience, a lot of the isms, the racism, the sexism, all the isms are deep seated in those small communities. They're also generational. There's certain names that are synonymous with racism in these very small towns. That is where a lot of your racism goes, I would say, no one's there to hold people accountable. And there's typically a small or like or a Black woman or a Black person somewhere fighting these things, and we don't want them to feel like they're alone. And so that's why TAG focuses on the small communities. We've dealt with a lot ourselves here in the Mon Valley. So we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the Mon Valley or PA thing, because there's small communities across the world, and typically they're left out when it comes to change, economic development, or anything, because they get wrapped up or sucked into this bigger city like we do with Pittsburgh. So that's where our heart is in the small communities. With that being said, our advocacy does not stop in the United States. There are small communities and people being affected across the world. So that is why we have been very vocal about what's going on in Gaza, about what's going on in Congo. So our advocacy does not just stop, in the United States of America. There's intersections there, and it's inhumane. Nobody should be treated that way. So we're going to call for a ceasefire, call for anything else we have to call for to make sure that people are held accountable and that people are stopped being tortured. I don't even know why that's even a question or a thought to some people, but nevertheless, it is. But we don't just do that in America, we do that everywhere. So that's why you see us doing a lot of lives and a lot of posts and a lot of discussions and also attending a lot of events in support of things going on, just not in Mon Valley, just not in PA, but everywhere. So with that being said, I'm going to bring on our guest. We have Pastor Chad, who's going to be joining us today. Hello.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you for coming on and joining us today. And so we're just going to jump right on into it. And then before you kind of answer, if you could just introduce yourself to people, kind of
Sure.
let people know some of the things that you're working on. So, and then after that, the very first question is, what is going on in Palestine?
Yeah.
The history of that, and we know that did not start a few months ago, or didn't start
Right.
in October. So
Right.
there you go.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
Hmm.
Um, I am a pastor here in Garfield. I've been here for about 20 years. Um, I grew up in Penn Hills. I was born in the Mon Valley, though, in McKeesport. I lived in McKeesport till I was 2. So, so I got a lot of love for those
Yes.
small communities. And even though Garfield is part of the city, just like every small neighborhood, there's a lot of pride and a lot of deep roots. And, just like the isms and issues that we all face, like, there's the sense of a lot of people in Garfield feel like they're being overlooked and pushed past with all that's going on in the East End.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, yeah, so I'm My family, we live here, and we face a lot of the similar issues that you all face out in McKeesport and in other parts of the Mon Valley and beyond. And so I also work for an organization I put in the chat. It's called FOSNA. It
Mm-hmm.
stands for Friends of Sabeel North America. And Sabeel is an organization that was founded in the 80s by Palestinian Christians. It's ecumenical, so it relates to all branches of Christianity, but also Islam and Judaism. And the work of Sabeel is come from a theological standpoint, but the focus is liberation. Just like Sister Fawn talked about TAG being a Black liberation organization, Sabeel is a Palestinian liberation organization. And Friends of Sabeel, there's Friends of Sabeel all across the world, and we have one here in the U.S. So I'm a national organizer with them. And I apologize for my throat. I'm battling a little cold, but please let me know if you can't hear me. Um, so I'll just give you a quick intersection for me and how. So I grew up in Penn Hills. Issues of racism. My mother used to take me and my brother to all the marches in Pittsburgh and kind of expose me. Growing up in Penn Hills, even though Penn Hills is very diverse, I never knew. I didn't know as a child like why in my part of Penn Hills was mostly white, and all my friends at school, but most of them we had diversity at school. But if I wanted to go play at my friends who were Black, I had to get a ride, to like Lincoln Park and other parts of Penn Hills where it was pretty segregated even back, of course, back then. But so early on, all that to say, I began noticing things, and my parents kind of exposed me to some of the roots of that. And then when I got to be an adult, when I was a young person, my family there was a Palestinian couple that actually lived with me. They had to flee in the 80s. And so we ended up learning about the situation over there. And then in 2014, I got a chance to go to Palestine. And I'd done a lot of reading, done a lot of understanding. But when you go over there, and I know some of you know, like One Hood and just Brother Jasiri, he went over right before I did. And I don't know if you ever saw he had a song called Checkpoint, and he wrote some things about what he saw, and then it confirmed for me when I went, that the laws and the situation of what's going on for Palestinian people for the last 75 years plus, it's like Jim Crow times 20, or it's like all the laws and all the things that really trap and oppress the Palestinian community are just very similar to what we see in the U.S. Our past and certainly even our present. Just recently, I know you all know Brother Coates, Ta-Nehisi Coates. He had just been to Palestine, I think this past May. And if you look him up, on Instagram or whatever, he's coming out now much more publicly, um, uh, given because of the conflict going on now. He's come out very public to say, long before this violence in October, when he was there, he said everything he saw, he was like, you know what, I've seen this before. I know what this is. This is white supremacy. This is American, as an apple pie, right? This is the way people of color are have been dealt with in this country here in the U.S. for hundreds of years, and so it was very familiar to him, which is very important. It's very important for our community, Black community, people, marginalized communities, to understand that the situation over there is really not just connected because our hearts care about other people, but it's really it's an extension of American supremacy, white supremacy, colonialism, and domination, like global power and greed and profit. And so, for the last however many month and a week or so, this has been this horrible season of violence. But for those of you who know, that Palestinians have been living, like Malcolm, right? Malcolm said, like if you got a knife stuck in my back and you pull it part way out, like you're not doing me any favor. There's still a knife in my back. Like for Palestinian people, particularly people living in Gaza, um, it's like they've got a boot on their neck and they can't move, they can't get out. Water is, they get like a couple hours a day water, a couple hours a day electricity. They're like living in a prison. And so all day long, it's violence. Every hour of every day is violence against them. And so on October 7th, of course, we know that some of their militant groups burst out of the jail. It was like a jailbreak, and they burst out and they fought and killed and captured and were violent. And when we see what's the response, of course, it's just been unending violence upon those in Gaza. 90% people being killed, of course, are just families, women, men. Over 5,000 children have been killed, and it's on and on and on. And I'll pause there because I know I can get all over the place. But I can stop here, Sister Fawn. Just guide me. What else you want me to focus on?
No, I appreciate the background, and I'm sorry, I don't know if it's jumping for other people. It's jumping
Yeah, it's a little
a
bit.
little bit. No, I appreciate the background because a lot of people don't know that, this is not on for centuries, for years, for longer than that. So this is, people being tortured and people being killed, uh, all in the name of greed and all the. And I just wanted to kind of get that out there because some people think it's new or it's just happening because they're just hearing about it
Yeah.
for centuries. And people like you, have been addressing it. And it really kind of pisses me off. On the other side of, well, the people asking for a ceasefire don't know what they're asking for. They don't understand
Mm.
any of this stupid or something. Like we understand how it works and a political expert or a historian to speak about this. This is it's not that hard, to figure out what's right and what's wrong. So
Right.
when people say, well, you don't, Hamas, Hamas is like the revolution.
Mm.
People have been tortured for years and centuries. People are going to fight back. I hear a lot of people say Israel has, to defend themselves. But I wish that, and I hear that from like elected officials. Why the hell would we not ask, for a ceasefire? And the fact that is ridiculous. Like we're not
Yeah.
asking for a lot. It's just a ceasefire. So I don't know a lot. Like that's with the history. You don't understand. You don't know. you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I know. I think I can speak a little bit more on that. You were unfortunately breaking up a little bit on me. Maybe I'm breaking up too. I don't know if it's the technology a little bit, but right. So this ceasefire. I mean, what people need to understand is most of all, of our politicians are paid. I mean, just like anything, they get money from the Israeli lobby, Democrats, Republicans alike,
Hmm.
and I mean, you see it locally here in the Valley with okay, cool, with our own congresswoman. And I know, Fawn, we talked about like Sister Summer gets to stand on on shoulders like yours to be where she is, but you see what goes on in the news here in Pittsburgh. I mean, she's constantly, even before all this,
Yeah.
before all this violence, because she was speaking up for human rights. Uh, the Israeli lobby put up, almost $5 million to try to keep her out of office the first time, and now, she's up against it again in a major way. And so, really, I mean, this is it's a corruption that goes so deep, and we know, certainly people in the Black community know that the lingo and the words of are are empty. Our promises for democracy and our belief in integrity. We know how deceptive and dishonest all of that is. It's been dishonest for us here. It's what's created this continued um, growing disconnect between the rich, who are getting richer and richer and richer, and the poor who's getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And that's the name of the game. We know that the United States doesn't really give a care about the humanity. I mean, to call for a ceasefire is almost like it's so disturbing that people aren't that people need to be challenged to say, let's stop killing innocent people. But again, like we know here in the U.S., we had that, we have Black Lives Matter campaign. Why do we need
Mhm.
to lift up that, right? Because Black lives don't matter in America as much as others. So that's why, you know, we cry free Palestine, and people call that anti-Semitic. Well, we know it's not anti-Semitic, but what is it? It's the status quo that are afraid and they don't want to give up their control. Just like, those who call for all lives matter and are afraid that to say Black Lives Matter, what's that mean? That this brings out the sort of the liberal movement of the white liberals who don't really, they want everything to be the same. And if they can feel good about
Mhm.
themselves, that they have a Black friend or something like that. But when they're pushed to say, what about our lives? Can they be equal? Shouldn't they be the same? Shouldn't we be fighting against the police together? Six, 6-1 in Allegheny County. Black people get arrested more than white people. There's 70% white people in our county, and or more than that. But the arrests, we know all of this. This is the same thing over in Israel Palestine. The victims are accused of being thugs and violent. When the oppressors make themselves look like the victims. And I remember, and again, I'm a thus far I maintain pacifism. I believe nonviolence can be as militant as violence, and I
Yes.
think we see that in our own history. I do believe that violence begets violence, which at the end of the day is why the Palestinian revolution, the resistance that is violent, is not a violence they created. It's a violence that's responding to violence. All that to say, you know, Sister Angela Davis back in the day, of course, another great Black leader, revolutionary leader who speaks always on behalf of Palestine. But I remember watching this interview, way back when she was young. I think it was 60 Minutes. You probably seen it. They asked her, "Will this Black Power movement be violent?" And her response is, "How dare you ask me? How dare you even bring it up to me? When for 400 years, all we know from white people, all we know from this country is violence." So don't even, so you might hear interviews today, and if you get a chance, you follow some Palestinian, and any, not only Palestinian, but others, Hamas is the first thing they're asked about. And right away they flip the script. Don't ask me about Hamas. Hamas has only been around since 1987. Palestinians have been living in under oppressed, funded by our government, Britain, and the United States, created this scenario. This Zion, of course, the Zionism movement began long before the horrors of the Holocaust. The Holocaust was horrible, of course it was, but there was a movement to take Palestine long before that, and it's been funded. And Palestinians have been living since 1948. Ethnically cleansed. They've been forced 750,000 of them were forced out of their homes. Over 500 villages were destroyed. And the UN, which created this by America's leading, of course, there's a resolution that those Palestinians are supposed to be allowed to go home. All the international law supports their right to return. So Israel has been committing war crimes since its foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's not what we hear, and so it's just one of those things you gotta, folks living in the struggles of America should know better. We should know better than to buy into the narrative that we hear, but it's so dominant. And so we got to dig deeper, which is, I'm sure, nothing new to this crowd. You guys are trying to get to the core of things. And so I'm grateful, for this work.
No, thank you for that, for adding that. It's so important, um, especially when you talk about the violence that we all face. There's so many intersections.
Right.
And it was reading Elder Angela Davis reading her books that I started to see these intersections with us, with Black people and Palestine and other parts of the world. When I was watching a video on Gaza, and they were talking about how they started with the water, and then I
Right.
thought of us in the Mon Valley, and I've never been able to drink this water.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Right.
because we have the mill over here, so there's so many intersections there. And I love that you brought up the UN because there's so many violations of international law that have been taking place for
Yeah.
centuries.
Yeah.
And the reason why people aren't speaking up is literally because of greed,
That's right.
because of
That's right.
money. It is
That's right.
disgusting.
It
It's
is. Yeah.
disgusting to
Yeah.
watch this. And
Yeah.
then you have some, like I seen a video or an ad today, I think with Van Jones was on it, and they were
Oh
doing
yeah.
like, did you see that mess?
Yeah.
Like a
He's speaking
march
at
for
the
Israel.
pro Israel rally. I couldn't believe it. He is Michael Rappaport. I'm never gonna watch his movies again. They're all in on that.
Yeah, yeah, it's disgusting. So how can people get involved? To
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, and I want to just say one other thing real quick, and this is I'm glad you're talking about Congo later in this evening, because like what we have to understand is the that corporate greed, that Western sort of domination that America holds the number one key to, but England, Israel, they hold the other keys. I mean, Israel is behind. If you look in any of the violence in Africa, even going back to like Rwanda, Israel was a part of that, giving weapons, supporting that genocide.
Yep.
The stuff in Congo, Israel's behind it too. They've got their hands in any kind of violent overthrow thing, any kind of raping of the earth that we've been doing to Africa for all these years. This country, Israel, is all about it. And it's because they're like the 51st state of America is what a lot of people call them. But so that's one reason why it needs to be important to us. The other reason, and you all already know this, I'm sure, but our police officers are being trained by the Israeli occupation forces. Pittsburgh police was trained. I'm not sure of McKeesport, whatever, but and I'll give you a prime example. Not only, in 2014 when Michael Brown was killed, and they were using tear gas out in Ferguson, that's what Palestinians face every day. You go to a refugee camp, there's a refugee camp in Bethlehem, right? Where Jesus is born. There's a refugee camp there called the Ida Refugee Camp. And every day, they fire tear gas into the youth where they're meeting. The youth have a campground. Every day they fire it in there. It's the same tear gas that was used on protesters in Ferguson. But the best example, and it's horrible, the kind of militarized policing that we see, certainly in Pittsburgh, Western PA, but all across the country. And the one example that sticks out to me the most is in Baltimore, when Freddie Gray was murdered by the police. On that day, you might recall, there was this social media rumor that youth were going to like loot and break into stores or whatever. So what they did was they made all the students busing home from school get off the buses and walk home. And what a militarized police does, this is what Israel does daily to Palestinians. They are aggressive. If they see a group of Palestinian kids together, they see a group of Black kids in Baltimore together, they go with their violence. They bring the violence to them. So those riots in Baltimore, those were started by police, because those police are trained to police our inner city or our poor communities, just like Israel polices Palestinians. And so it just, so you know, I mean, this is the chicken coming home to roost, and then some. Our inner cities, our poor communities, our small rural communities, the police are being trained to look at us as the enemy, which is what militarized policing is all about. Anyway, so real quick, two things I want to just share you can get involved with easily. We do have a kind of like a budding coalition here in Pittsburgh, and it includes all of Western PA. And you'll see, I think I put it in the chat. Our next action is this Friday. We're meeting at Senator Fetterman's office. Casey and Fetterman have the same office on Grand Street, but we're meeting there, and we're going to have a small memorial, just again to cry out that somehow, somewhere in these men, they have a heart somewhere. We hope, we still believe somehow there's a heart inside these two men, though we don't see it. So we're going to have a memorial gathering there, and then we're going to march to, actually it's right across the river near where like PNC Park is. There's a company called Arconic, and they're indirectly related to the violence because they make aluminum that's used in the creation of these fighter jets that are American, funded by America, funded by you and me, that are used to right now drop bombs on hospitals, on churches, on mosques, on schools, on whole refugee camps. So we're going to take our message and try to push it beyond just the politics. We're going to try to link the fact that we have a war machine that runs our own government and helps support the war machine in Israel, Palestine. So please check that out. You can link in on that. And there's going to be an ongoing calendar, places for people to volunteer and get connected. And Sister Fawn, you can obviously send anybody my number. I don't mind. I'll take a phone call from anybody. And we really do need to broaden this as far as we can, because we're trying to take the state over, because we want the Democrats that are expecting our votes to know they can't count on them anymore.
Yes.
Enough is enough. Dr. King was in the jail, and people say, just keep waiting. He said, I'm not waiting anymore, right? We're done waiting for our country's leaders to do what's right, whether that's for our own communities or for a place like in Congo or Palestine that our money is linked into directly. So we want to really develop a Pennsylvania coalition regarding Palestine, and it overlaps, intersects with any issue of injustice anywhere. So the more people who be about this, it's about the same battle that we're fighting here. And then the second thing I
Hmm.
put in the chat, I think Brother Nas put it up again. There's something called the Apartheid Free Campaign that Amnesty International, other human rights groups, even Israeli human rights groups
Hmm.
have called what Israel does is apartheid, just like South Africa. Um, South Africans have been calling it that for years. Bishop Tutu, other freedom fighters in South Africa, have been talking about Israel as an apartheid state for a long time. Anyway, you can check it out on that apartheidfree.org. I'm part of a coalition that began this pledge. We want to get as many organizations to take this pledge to be apartheid free. I mean, it's a simple pledge. And really, it's just to agree,
Hmm.
basically, to not be racist, right? To not support. I mean, it's stupid that we got to do this, but
Right.
we know where we are. We know where we live. We know what the world is. But we believe is the more communities, and certainly that's any kind of community. Tag
Right.
is a community.
Hmm.
It could be a school, it could be a church, it could be a mosque, it could be a synagogue. There's synagogues who signed. There's Jewish people who are against. Again, the other thing to be clear, this is not a religious thing. This isn't the state of Israel does not speak for Jewish people or Jewish faith. They're just like American. As a Christian, it breaks my heart, right? That so-called Christians are the ones who are pushing Donald Trump to get back in office. That's we call that, well, words that I shouldn't say online. You never know, but if in person you want me to give you those words, I will. Either way, we would love to have more and more people in Western PA sign that pledge. We're not doing individual signatures, just groups right now. So you could take it to your church, take it to your any organization, your fraternity, sorority, whatever, any group that you're a part of. Please check that out and sign up your organization. And there's a lot more information on
Hmm.
that apartheidfree.org just to keep this movement. Again, this was something that started long before this recent outburst of
Right.
violence. But okay, I know I took a lot of time. Thank you, Sister
Oh
Fawn.
no, 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 you're fine. We appreciate you coming on and what you said about the police
Yeah.
militarizing.
Yep.
I seen it up here with us. Well, it started when we were protesting for Antoine Rose II, but then in
Right.
2020 it really picked up because I was hit with rubber bullets.
Oh my God.
The tear gas came out,
Yep.
and then just a few days ago, because we went to support Cop City, because and to bring Cop City up because
That's
Israel soldiers are training them as well,
yep.
and they had tanks out for us,
Yep.
literal tanks,
Yep.
um, literal, the shotguns, like tanks. Like I said, what the hell, a tank, like
That's
a
it.
literal tank. I seen 5 tanks and they
Yep.
were riding around in these damn tanks. And I said, wow,
Yep.
look at this. So they were already being trained by Israel soldiers. So
That's
if
right.
we have a cop city, what the hell do you think they're going to do in this now it's in a residential area with a bunch of black people
That's right.
because it's Atlanta. So I
Right.
seen a I really seen it, with those tanks. And this was yesterday.
Yeah. No, you're
So
right. I'm glad you brought that up because
yep.
I've seen a little bit of images of it in Cop City. Looks like I mean the whole thing is being built
Mhm.
like a military base in Israel. I mean it looks like these military yeah, it's horrible. But that's it. I
Yeah.
mean this is the thing. And I'll say well one last thing.
Mhm.
Um, you know, in America, there are a lot of people who speak prophetically, but there's been no voice like the black community to lead America toward better, more honest, toward justice. And Israel knows that too. And of course, there's some stories, biblical stories, that resonate, and they should. The Exodus, the Hebrews were enslaved for 400 years, and they found freedom, and that's a story that resonates, and it should resonate. But that's fine. But what Israel's doing, they're going after black colleges, Black university, HBCUs, churches especially, and they will pay to bring you to Israel. They'll pay to bring and show you what they want you to see. And at the end of the day, what I recognize is how shrewd and just evil they are, is they know what they're doing. They're trying to silence the prophetic voice from within America. The strongest prophetic voice has always been from the margins, from the African American community, women especially, the indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not stupid. They're targeting our communities to get them to be quiet. And you see it I mean, you see it in the politicians. I mean, you could look at anyone, any African American politician, not all of them, but many of them have been silenced by Israel. And anyway, so yeah, so we got to wake up, because the result of that not only is injustice in Israel Palestine, but it's coming to a neighborhood near you, and it's already here.
It's already here, right?
Right.
Yep. And if people, so we'll put the links that that Pastor Chad brought up in the chat. But we also signed on to a statement for Blacks for Palestine.
Oh
So
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
put that in the chat as well. Students
great,
for Justice in Palestine at Pitt, we signed on
yep,
to that statement.
awesome,
I would recommend Eyes on Palestine as an Instagram account to follow,
yeah,
as well as the Rising Majority.
yes,
Rising
yes,
Majority, they have like weekly webinars. So if you go on there's actually one this coming up Thursday. And then there's I'm not saying this right, ADALAH Justice Project. They have a
yeah,
toolkit.
Adala, yeah,
Adult
they're great,
Justice Project. Yeah, they
yeah,
have a
but I think,
toolkit.
yep,
But
and I think are the Dream Defenders in on that, the Dream Defenders, right? Yeah,
yes, yeah.
so yeah, I know I'm preaching to the choir, some of y'all, because you know, from the jump, even way back, the Black Panthers were down with Palestine. Certainly Malcolm, even though people want to call Martin, Mark, we know why he was murdered. He was murdered because he spoke up against the militarism and the consumerism and the
Mhm,
racism and the economic injustice of America. So we know
mhm,
that our foremothers and fathers blazed the trail for us to be in this place. So
mhm. Yes. Thank you so much for coming on, Pastor Chad. I know you have to get to your
yeah, I
thing,
got
but
to jump
thank
to
you.
another meeting. But thank you all so much, and please, on the flip side, Sister Fawn, we need to get our people out to the Mon Valley. You just let me know when to bring the crew from Garfield and from the city. We got to get each other's back.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Appreciate you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Love you much. Peace.
Right,
Thank
you
you.
too. Bye-bye. Thank you, Pastor Chad. That was a great conversation. So we got 20 minutes left. And I just wanted to reiterate some of the links that I know my team is putting in the chat there. My team for fostering strategies, Chateau is putting in the chat there. We did sign on to the Black for Palestine statement, also the Students for Justice in Palestine at University of Pittsburgh. They've really been out here in the street, so shout out to them. And Eyes on Palestine is a good Instagram account. Sean King's good Instagram account to follow as well, and then Rising Majority and the Adala Justice Project. So we'll put those in the chat as well. And before we close out, wanted to talk about what was going on in the Congo. You haven't heard a lot about it, and it's similar to what's happening in Palestine. And of course, these are Black people, so you haven't heard a lot about it. So I just want to kind of go over a brief history of what's kind of going on in the Congo. So since 1996, the conflict in the Eastern Congo has led to 6 million deaths. 6 million deaths, you all, since 1996. The first Congo War was in 96 and 97, and it began in the wake of the 94 genocide in Rwanda, during which there was an ethnic extremist who was killed, an estimated 1 million minority, ethnic, and moderate in Rwanda. 6 million people have been killed. And then recently in 2023, there's been an increase in violence, like militant groups clashing over territory, natural resources, killing of security forces, political violence, rising tensions. 6 million people have died. This situation is dire, just like it is in Palestine. We just don't hear about it a lot. It continues to deteriorate. Violent conflict every day. More than 5 million people have been displaced within the country, and more than 1 million have sought asylum, mostly within Africa. There's also a connection to us here, just like we talked about earlier when we were talking about Palestine. So anytime you pick up your cell phone or any other device, it's directly connected to what is going on in the Congo. So anytime you're picking up your phone, your remote, it contains minerals that are mined in the Congo, and there are children working in these mines. So think about that when you're picking up your phone, your computer, your laptop, and people are dying so we can have these appliances, these cell phones. So what's going on in the Congo has been going on once again for centuries, for years. These are Black people. So this is why we haven't heard a lot about it. So that's why this All Lives Matter crowd is such a joke to me, because where the hell y'all been? This has been going on in Congo forever. You got children, just like you got children in Palestine. You have children dying. You have children working in mines. What the hell? Where is the outrage for what's going on in Congo? So we want to also bring awareness to that. So what I gave you was a very brief history, and I'm always going to tell you, look it up for yourself. Google is out there, you all. Google what's happening in Congo. I promise you it'll come right on up and you'll see it. And a lot of people will ask me questions about Rwanda. Is it connected? Yes, it's directly connected to the Congo. So, because I know years ago that was something that people were talking about and then it kind of died down. But just because America stops talking about doesn't mean that it's stopping. America has also been funding that as well. We always have our hands in some messed up shit. Excuse me before I go on my rant, but make sure that you're Googling and looking at what's going on in the Congo. We should be posting about that. We should be raising awareness just like we're doing in Palestine, Congo. There's things going on in Egypt. There's things going on everywhere across the world. We cannot be silent, nor can we be so narrow-minded to just think that it's just affecting Black people in America. We cannot think that way. We have to understand that until all of us are free, none of us are free. There is so many intersections with what is happening in Palestine, what's happening in Congo, what's happening in America, what's happening across the world. So the way we get through this is through solidarity and through really supporting one another. So in our chat, we're going to put, there are some organizations working in the Congo. So there may be more than the ones that I'm about to mention, but please do your own research. So I Heart Africa is one of them. And then there's somebody on Instagram. I'm just going to spell their name out. CHAKAZULU. We'll put that in the chat as well. They've been doing work in the Congo, working with the children over there, and they're taking donations as well. So we'll put that in the chat for people to kind of reach out to them. And if you want to donate or just see what is going on over there. So please make sure you're all doing your research. Please make sure that you are paying attention to what the hell is going on. So we talked about Palestine, talked about Congo. I do want to talk a little bit about Cop City, and I mentioned it earlier with the connections with Cop City and what's going on in Israel and how they're training our police, so they have been for years. So um, we actually came down to Atlanta to help out with Cop City, and this is our second time being here because we have a case here as well. Quinasia Ball was hit and murdered by a car in DeKalb County. So we have been down raising awareness about that because that's been going on. There's been a lot of Black girls in Atlanta being ran over by cars, and no one is being held accountable. So we're making noise about that as well. Um, I guess a takeaway would be things that we've kind of already mentioned is in regards to these connections between Cop City, um, Israel, and the Miller. Oh my goodness, they had tanks out there, you all. So I know the narrative is that some of the protesters were no. These folks had tanks out for us. Tanks, tanks. And just like Pastor Chad was saying, when we look at Cop City, it looks like Israel training force. I mean, they're telling you what they're doing. We have to pay attention. One thing that I did see from kind of being in Atlanta was we have to be more conscious. I'm talking about we as Black people. We have to be more conscious about what is going on around us. And they're telling you, America tells on themselves all the damn time. So they're telling you what they're trying to do. For the life of me, we cannot be this naive. Atlanta is one of the blackest places in America, but they want to put a $90 billion police training facility smack in the heart of Atlanta. Come on, y'all. Come on. Why would they be doing that? Why the hell do you think they would be doing something like that? My biggest fear is that they're going to use Black people in Atlanta as like training because it's a police training facility. And all they got to do is say you reached your hand out or they felt intimidated. And they're going to practice that shit out. That's one of my biggest fears with Cop City. So to the Black people in Atlanta, get involved. Reach out to people like Community Movement Builders. CMB is down there. The Malcolm X Grassroots Project, Black Alliance for Peace. Reach out to them. Get involved. Pay attention. Go to the council meetings. Talk to your mayor. Talk to your elected officials. Cop City will not be built. We do not need a cop city. If we get a cop city in Atlanta, I promise you there'll be cop cities everywhere. Police are going to go there to train how to kill us. They're showing you that with every protest, you just get more militarized. Every protest. And this was somebody been protesting since she was 11 years of age. They crept in with the tear gas. Then it became the rubber bullets. Now there's tanks. And if you watch them, they're moving in certain formations. The shit is wild. So pay attention, man. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We have to believe that in here. Believe that in here. Wake up. Be more conscious. So that's my spiel about Cop City. And I'm not just talking to Black people in Atlanta. I'm talking to Black people every damn where. Because it's not just something that affects Black people in Atlanta. It affects all of us. So reach out. You're in Atlanta, you want to learn more, Community Movement Builders, Malcolm X Grassroots Project, and Black Alliance for Peace. So I want to end out with some things going on in the greater Pittsburgh area. So this article came out today, and I don't know if it went over people's heads. It was sent to me. So I looked at it, and basically, your mayor, not my mayor because I live in McKeesport, but Ed Gainey, the Pittsburgh mayor, decided to abandon the community engagement in favor of a street crimes unit, SCU, which is along the lines of the Scorpion unit in Memphis that was responsible for the death of Tyree Nichols. I'm going to say that again. The Pittsburgh police chief and your mayor, Ed Gainey, have decided to abandon the community engagement department, or whatever hell, in favor of a SCU street crime unit, which is similar to the Scorpion unit in Memphis that killed Tyreek Nichols, and I'm sure various other people. So that is what they want to do here in the city of Pittsburgh. The article goes on to mention that their goal is to work toward community engagement by coming to local football games. But when they're at these games, the purpose of the engagement is to scout for criminals. What in the hell? They put this in writing, yo. So they just being bold about telling y'all what they're gonna do. They're gonna steal. You see all the cops, you see cops for donuts and doing the cha-cha slide and shit like that at these community events. They're scouting for criminals. They're telling you what they're going to do. Damn it. Pay attention. Pay attention. This article came out, well, it sent to me today, but it's a recent article. Street Crimes Unit in the city of Pittsburgh is being created as we speak. Their goal is to come to community events and scout for criminals. They're telling you what they want to do. They disbanded the community engagement unit. So all the reform talk that y'all was pushing, when I was saying revolution, when I was saying don't say reimagine, say defund. Because we have to say what we mean, and we have to be bold and courageous in that because our ancestors died, so we can say that. And y'all just kept saying reform. No, Fawn, reform. No, Fawn, that's too harsh. And this is the shit that you get when you're not bold and courageous enough, when you're sitting at these tables with these people. I'm extremely disappointed in Mayor Ed Gainey. I wasn't a vocal supporter of the campaign. I had, reservations, and damn, now I know why. A whole scorpion unit here, or similar scorpion unit here in the city of Pittsburgh. They're gonna come to your football games that y'all will post that they come and the cha-cha with y'all and eat donuts and shit like that. They're scouting for criminals. They're telling you in your face what they're doing. Of course, that's going to create or just further keep going this antagonist relationship between the police and the community. So that is happening real time. That is happening right now. We need to be getting on the phone, calling and emailing your mayor and telling this is a horrible idea. We do not need a scorpion unit in the city of Pittsburgh. What the hell? You get one there, guess where next place it'll be? The Valley. Hell, it probably already is. They just maybe ain't as bold enough to just come out and tell you what the hell they trying to do. So pay attention. Look that up. We'll put that article in the chat as well for you. It was in the Post Gazette. So I don't know, some people might not want to read it because we also banned the Post Gazette too. So maybe we'll try to find another link to put in the chat. But it's called let me say that again, Street Crimes Unit, SCU, which is similar to the Scorpion Unit used in Memphis, which killed Tyree Nichols. They're going to come to football games and youth basketball games, not to build trust, but to scout for criminals. So all the reform talk, y'all, it didn't work. All of the committees y'all created where they were supposed to talk about defunding, but calling it reallocating or calling it rematch, whatever shit like that, it didn't work. Because this is what we got. This is what we got. So we must continue to pay attention, to speak up, and yes, be revolutionary when we talk about this shit. Absolutely be revolutionary. That revolution lives inside of you, and we can't let them beat that out of us. You understand? We have to keep going. We have to keep pushing. We have to keep speaking up. We have to keep talking. This is not right. We do not need a scorpion similar like unit in the city of Pittsburgh. This is a horrible idea. So y'all need to get on the phones, get on your email. When you see Mayor Gainey, pull him to the side. This is not what people want. This ain't safe. This ain't safe at all. And these are our babies. These are our children. And we're just going to be okay with giving our children, letting them come to these games and scout people out. You know what that's going to end up. We know how that's going to end up. They have shown it to us over and over again. So be more conscious, y'all. Pay attention to what the hell is going on around you. So we'll put all this in the chat. Y'all need to really get on your mayor because we do not need a scorpion type unit in the city of Pittsburgh. And we damn sure don't need other police departments thinking this is something of a good thing to do. But for all the reformists, they're getting rid of the community engagement department. So there you go with the reformists. You cannot train and reform this out of policing because policing started with racism. That's the history of policing. It's not going where you have to abolish policing. That's the only answer, in our opinion, anyway. So, like I said, we'll put all this in the chat. If I leave y'all with any words, it is to remember that there is power when we work together. There is power when we are in community with one another. There is power when you use your voice, even if it's shaken. Do what's right, and don't let them beat or kill the revolutionary spirit in you, because we need that to continue this fight. Ashe.